Welcome to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is Colin, and I'm here with the doctor himself.
Hello.
On this podcast, we talk about DC Comics, the frustrating, sometimes confusing elements. For example, Superman shaving in the mirror with laser I-beam business that we've been talking about on Twitter.
That's true. Hashtag laser your ass is definitely in the lead right now.
Yeah, not by much. An unconvincing 67% of you
if you've been listening to the episode and you haven't registered on the poll yet, you have no, by the time you hear this, the poll will be done. But just keep an eye on how soundly I'm beating Colin.
67% is not an overwhelming margin.
To be fair, the way that you word the intro to that thing, it sounds like people are just voting that they've listened to the episode rather than...
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
This is how he was planning on getting it on me.
Oh, okay.
Today we're going to be talking about some pretty fun stuff.
Ooh.
I did some reading. Richard learned how to count this week.
I think we're up to 4 or 5 now.
I think 6 I heard.
Oh, wow. Well, let's not get out of ourselves.
Jessica was bragging 6. So in news, Stephen Amell really wants an Arrow Supernatural crossover.
So who is that first? Because I know that Colin has no idea.
Yeah, so Stephen Amell is the actor.
Amell?
I think it's Amell.
Amell?
Hashtag Amell or hashtag Amell.
How are you
the same
Don't worry
spelling?
about it.
It's
We'll
the
figure
same
it out.
spelling.
It's the exact same spelling, yeah. We'll sort
How do you
this out
pronounce
You can do the
on
phonetic spelling.
That's right. Yeah, use the phonetic alphabet. So he's the actor that plays Oliver Queen, aka the Green Arrow, on the CW's Arrow. And yeah, apparently he wants to do a crossover with Supernatural, which, I mean, setting aside the fact that Supernatural is not a DC thing.
But to be fair, they all film in basically the same exact area.
Yeah.
Vancouver.
I will admit something. Supernatural's in season 13. I haven't seen a single episode.
A single episode?
I have never seen an episode of Supernatural.
I'm not okay with this because the first no, you shut your goddamn mouth. The first 9 seasons are amazing.
Yes, actually.
Okay, good. Okay.
I've seen up to season 10.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's really good.
I've heard it's very good. I'm not avoiding it deliberately. I just have never seen it, and there's just so much to try and take in. I spend so much of my week on comic books that it's really hard for me to add a whole nother sort of realm of
it's
things.
Very similar to a lot of tropes in comic books. Right. People die a lot and come back to life a lot.
I can get behind that.
Super dad.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a whole god and angels things that become part of it, and
oh jeez,
there's a lot of lore and there's a lot of sexy fan.
You had me at lore.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear when you said sexy something. I was already on board
he was
lore.
just repeating lore. He said sexy lore.
Yeah. Fan fiction.
Yeah, that's right. Sexy lore fan fiction. That's a Star Trek joke for everyone that watched Next Generation.
Oh, by the way, are you excited about the new Star Trek show? Oh, CBS.
So excited.
Yeah.
So excited.
I'm very concerned. Though I think it's really interesting that Seth MacFarlane's new comedy Star Trek type show is coming out at the exact same time.
Yeah, it would be kind of fun to watch them play off each other.
I know. I'm very... You see that?
Because the new Star Trek looks like such a drama. And the Orville is a straight up farce.
Exactly. So I find that kind of stuff happens in movies a lot, but you don't see it in TV shows as much. Where there's what was the 2 magician movies that came out at the exact same time?
Wasn't that just the Prestige and the Illusionist?
Yeah, they
one a comedy.
No, but I just meant
that
2 very similar things happen at the same time.
They're actually both comedies.
Yes.
If you change the soundtrack, both comedies.
Yeah. Lots of banana peel slips. Yeah, the only sort of DC connection I can make really with this Arrow Supernatural hypothetical crossover is that Jensen Ackles did voice the Red Hood in the animated Under the Red Hood movie where Bruce Greenwood is Batman.
Really, because you know that he, from what I hear, is he turned down opportunities to become a Marvel hero. Basically,
really,
there was talks about him becoming a part of the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh wow!
And he basically it wouldn't work with the Supernatural schedule, and so he kind of turned down that opportunity. But I mean, I could see him as like so many different. Here, what's the guy that shoots the arrows in Avengers?
Hawkeye.
Yeah, he could be a total Hawkeye.
Yeah,
100%.
if they didn't already have
That's what I mean. But maybe it would have been him.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's what, so I don't know. I find that he's like he seems like he's super like into comic books, and so I feel like there's
maybe he's just holding out for DC. So
oh my god,
DC execs, we know you're always listening.
Always.
Give Jensen Ackles a call.
That's right. Okay, so they like Marvel has like Kevin Feige and stuff. Who's the DC guys?
It's Jeff Johns.
Jeff Jones.
Yeah, who
sounds a lot like John.
Of course,
don't
it's
out him.
Of course, it's Jeff Jones.
Martian Manhunter.
If anything to say about Martian Manhunter is that he's not really great at creating like fake names for himself. Obviously, John Jones was like people figured that out. I got it. Jeff Johns
nailed it first try.
Yeah, no one's gonna get that.
How did I never put this together? Jeff Johns is Martian Manhunter.
Sorry, I have one more thing I'm going to interrupt with. Are we letting people know where in the world that we exist?
Well, I mean, only if we want the orbital strike to hit us with pinpoint accuracy.
Okay, this is what I'll do. I'll be very vague about it then. The highest political person in this area that we live, I was having a haircut and he was also there today, and I realized very quickly that he could totally be a superhero because he's got that whole name thing.
Oh yeah, he's got the alliterative
and it
name.
sounds like Colin Close.
Well, except for I'm not a.
Is that a Marvel thing?
It is a Marvel thing.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's. I'm just gonna shake with rage quietly for the rest of the episode.
Hold on though, because like John Jones.
I think that's just like a one-off thing.
That's
though,
a DC guy, right?
Yeah, but that's not like Marvel had like almost like an in-house rule for a bit that like
Peter Parker,
Bruce Banner. Yeah. And then
other ones.
a bunch of other ones that I'm thinking of don't follow that rule, so it shows how much I know about Marvel. But
okay.
Clint Barton.
Sorry, I digress.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean,
you do.
Stephen Amell is kind of like famous for saying the things that he wants to happen, and then like the execs from like the CW or DC have to be like, Stephen, like you gotta like tone it down, because he wanted like the TV shows to be part of the movie universe, and they were like, it's not gonna happen. And then he speaks his mind. I think fans like it when they go to cons and they say like, Steven, like, what do you think should happen next? And he'll be like, I think like they should like recast, and then like the DC execs
I should be in
like,
everything.
Oh my god, no. So
it kind of sounds like he's a super fan.
But
he's also an actor.
I think he is a fan. I mean, he's certainly he's been sort of like embroiled in that world ever since Arrow started up, and then especially with the success of The Flash, and then they do their crossover episodes. He's become like much more. Instead of Arrow just being this show off to the side that's kind of based on Green Arrow, he's been really sort of thrust into that superhero world now that there's powers and things like that.
So why do you think that they're like, this is both for DC and Marvel, why are they so like opposed to taking the TV show properties and then introducing them into the movies? Like, I mean, the new Justice League, they bring in a whole different Flash. Do you think it just doesn't work within this type of universe that they're creating? Like, so
there's a couple of things. I mean, Marvel's stuff actually is all connected. The Netflix shows take place in the same universe as the films,
but they don't
really reference it a ton, other than saying
they don't
the
blend together. Like you don't see
like
Daredevil in.
No, but you may in future. They kind of reserve the right.
Because this is the end of the, like, I know this is not the Marvel podcast, and I apologize, but this is the end of the Marvel, like, 22 movie series. Like, they're going to change.
Oh, it's not the end. But it's going to be the end for some of, like, the original ones, like, possibly for Steve Rogers, Captain America.
Definitely for Iron Man. Definitely for Iron Man. He's good.
But yeah, I mean, their stuff is technically all connected. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is, like, right in that world. Coulson is on that show.
Yeah.
The DC one, I think you touched on it a little bit. I don't think tonally, like what they were doing with the movies matched what's happening with the shows.
Because Flash feels very like almost Marvel-y, like at times.
Well, I mean, but this is the thing. DC comics are also fun. I mean, you won't necessarily know that from the movies, but I think if you were listening to our last episode where we talked about retcons, there's also the thing where like Arrow had a few seasons. If all of the sudden Man of Steel is part of that like world, you need a good ass reason why no one in Star City has been like, you hear about the guy that fucking flies? like they need separation. But I know a lot of people, it bugs them. They want things to all connect, but I don't need that, especially in DC, because DC is built on that multiverse sort of theory where there are different Earths with different characters. I'm totally fine with it. I can kind of divorce those things in my head. I know some people have a hard time with it. I kind of
Don't bring up that word.
Oh, yeah. Sensitive subject, yeah. But as for a Arrow Supernatural crossover, I don't think it would make sense like in the context of an episode of the series. But if they did like a special, you know, like when Sherlock does like a Christmas special or something,
where he did that
like Victorian era.
Yeah.
If they just did like a special, it would probably be fun. I'd be interested in something like that.
We could take more from like the British like small series, like weird choices that they would do on the BBC, because I always love the like really random shit that they do.
Oh yeah, no, they have fun with it, but they can do that thing too where they like switch off the continuity brain a little bit and just have some fun. So
Treat it more like wrestling.
yeah, that's right.
So, moving along in news, Matt Reeves of Planet of the Apes fame has said he has an idea for a Batman trilogy.
Yeah, so he's the
Hasn't there already been like a trillion Batman trilogies?
So maybe we should get some backstory of how he's even involved with Batman in general.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're right. There have been Batman. Well, there was a Batman tetralogy. And then there...
How many is that?
That's 4.
Okay. Quadrology?
No, it's tetra. It's Greek, I think. So it's like tetra.
Where you
instead.
put
Sure.
Juice boxes?
So that was the one that was like the first 2 films were Tim Burton's, like Batman Returns, and the second 2 films were Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. And then there was the Nolan trilogy.
Hey, Batman and Robin is terrible. Batman Forever is not that bad.
Do you know what? I hate Batman Forever more because I can't even like enjoy it as a bad movie.
Really?
Batman and Robin I can just watch for the ridiculous like ice puns and things like that. Batman Forever is unwatchable.
Somebody explained Batman and Robin to me in a way that made it less bad. Was his intention from one of his goals for making that was basically like taking action figures and like as if you're playing with action figures. So that's why they're so over the top. And
if only every time you went to a movie they gave you a one sheet. And
yeah,
then you could,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
Know
Here's
what's
why this
happening.
movie's
Yeah.
good.
If only.
This is what the director was thinking, for example, in this part.
So there have been a couple of Batman series in the past. Matt Reeves, who just came off War for the Planet of the Apes, he directed the amazing, most recent Planet of the Apes movies. He is attached to the Batman film with Ben Affleck as Batman, part of the
Is
DCEU.
it the Batman?
I think it's called The Batman. Yeah.
Isn't there already like a The Batman comic?
There was a cartoon called The Batman.
That was good.
Yeah. So he's attached to do the Batman film, and he said,
Oh, planes crashing.
this is because you gave away our location.
Right
I
into
know.
our podcast.
Satellites.
Wow, it's really taking its time.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we should probably keep going, chugging along, just in case this is the last thing we ever do.
Yeah, so he said like he does have an idea of an arc of like where the character could go over the course of 3 movies. But he also very quickly on the heels of that, because he knew that this sort of thing blows up on Twitter, said, but you have to just start with one film. Like you can't get ahead of yourself. You need to make each film its own story that makes sense and does justice to the character and to the world and what they're trying to achieve. So he has ammunition and ideas and like fodder for multiple Batman movies, but wisely is focusing his efforts on the upcoming one, the first one.
How do you feel like he's going to do?
Well, from everything that I've heard about it, it's supposed to be very like detective-y, which is great.
That's
like
a whole different Batman we've never seen.
Almost noir
Oh my god.
is what I've been kind of reading and hearing.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see like a new take. We've seen like kind of dark with like Burton, and then we saw kind of campy silly with Schumacher. We saw like overly naturalistic with Nolan, where it's like he's just like literally a guy with a bank account. And so we know that there are powers in the DCEU. We know that there's Superman, Doomsday, and Killer Croc, and these kind of weird sort of monster characters. It'd be interesting to see that go into like the noir era, because it would almost cross over. Batman could very easily cross over into horror. Like Snyder and Capullo's run in the comics kind of pushed into like the horror realm where there are like monsters that Batman fights, and where that world, where like the world itself, like Gotham, is angling toward evil and Batman's the only one standing in its way. Like there's something kind of neat about that, and I think this sort of direction can lend itself to that.
Hold on, I want to do one thing. Okay, hold on, Colin, can you do me a favor? Can you go?
No.
Can you just do it? Just do it.
No, I'm not a jazz man.
Just please do it.
I'm not a jazz man.
Okay, you do it then. Joker, there's no room for two clowns in this town, and you're all out of jokes.
Wait, so who's this guy?
That's Batman as a detective in a noir film.
Oh, and he's saying he's also a clown.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Is he doing it in some like dodgy little nightclub that also does comedy?
Yeah, see? I'm the Batman.
Edward G. Robinson as
And
Batman?
it's the 30s. Okay, so two things. That sounds like it would make a great crossover with Supernatural.
Boom, boom, boom.
There we go.
And secondly, it just dawned on me the fact that Ben Affleck was also Daredevil.
Yes.
He did a great job in Batman vs Superman. If there's anything to be pulled out of that movie, he did.
I feel
Ben Affleck as
like
Batman
if
is
somebody
incredible casting.
If somebody's going to be doing like the more detective side, edgier noir, I wouldn't pick Ben Affleck.
But your like hate for Ben Affleck is well documented.
I don't have
in the
hate for
in
Ben
the
Affleck.
first
You've
episode.
openly said you hated it.
In the first
okay.
episode, you called him Matt Damon's sidekick.
That's true.
It's because I couldn't remember his name. It's because we were drinking Hires root beer with vodka.
Don't try to make it happen. We already did it once.
Damn it. It's just so tasty. You don't even taste the vodka. I think that there are a lot of different actors that could possibly.
Who would you want?
This person had better be like a mind-blowing thing if you want to go through the trouble of recasting. Like if you imagine that you're the exec at DC Films.
Yeah, I want to hear.
I would imagine somebody, and I'm not going to say a name, but I would imagine somebody.
Do you know them
Interesting
personally?
pitch.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I would imagine the character to be less of like a muscle-bound type of person, the way that we've kind of seen Batman historically, and somebody who's a little bit more like. This sounds terrible, but like the kid who played Jughead on Riverdale, like kind of that aesthetic of like skinny jeaned kind of like aesthetic, like a
Thin?
like a James Bond, but you're not.
Oh,
not-
really?
Yeah.
But James
Like a
Bond,
Tom Holland?
but James Bond has bulk too. Like the
Yeah, but I mean like
not like.
real James Bond, not the blonde one that they tried to pass over as
I'm
James
sorry,
Bond.
that's the best one.
But also like Ben Affleck's like this
Read a book.
barrel-chested like beast in.
That's deliberate too, though, because we haven't seen that. You know, like
No, it's true. It was
like Michael Keaton was not barrel chested.
No.
You know, like we're seeing like that Dark Knight Returns, like old Batman who's just like so consumed with rage he just pulls that chain with the tire on it in the Batcave like every day until like he can fall asleep.
He's got a CrossFit class that nobody shows up for in the
Right, but
Batcave.
he's in great
He's a
shape.
total CrossFit guy. If you look at his training montage from that movie, it's a total CrossFit bro. Yeah.
But yeah, I would imagine somebody a little bit more like modern, urban, and less of.
I think you're kind of describing like when Dick Grayson became Batman. Like Nightwing, Dick Grayson, the first Robin, he was like a circus acrobat, and so his thing was a bit more the agility and less of like the brute force of Bruce Wayne. And so when he became Batman, he's still like he's shredded because every comic book character is shredded, but yeah, I think maybe he had a bit more of that quality, like a little bit more lithe, lighter physically. Do
you think we're
more
gonna
agile?
I think you think we're gonna get a Nightwing movie, or is there talk about it?
I think there's been preliminary talk. I wouldn't be surprised to see him introduced via the Batman movie or something else, or even like Birds of Prey or something.
We're never gonna get the Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
No, I think they've
Nightwing.
like cut like.
Do you think that they were like
that's who
pointing
I'd pick for Batman.
Yeah, that's true.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, if it's a detective type role, I think
He
that
would be good. In
he
a
would be
detective type
amazing.
role.
As Batman though?
Yep.
Okay. Did you see?
Maybe if they did like year one or something.
Did you see
Maybe.
Looper?
I did.
Amazing. Amazing.
That sort of like that had that kind of vibe to it.
Maybe.
I feel like he could do it. I'm just saying that would be really good.
I like how we started with you guys being like, you don't know what you're talking about here, and then kind of come around to it. Like he would be great at it because he is kind of a little bit more like urban, modern. Like he like as a detective.
Every time we say urban, I'm just like,
if it's more of like a noir,
We cast
film,
LL Cool J.
yeah.
So-
But yeah, he would be. I think he'd be great for that
do
role.
you think that they were pointing towards doing a Joseph Gordon-Levitt like Batman-y movie.
No.
Because why? Like, it felt like they were really like winking at you.
It's just because that movie is so like ruthlessly searching for a happy ending, which is part of why that movie doesn't work.
You don't think that movie works?
I mean, the movie's got. I liked it. I watched it multiple times in the cinema, but like it doesn't work. They're trying too hard to find a happy ending, like
like when they actually show them like in
he's
Paris
in the cafe and like
oh god,
Michael Caine gets his Fone Branca and he like looks over and he sees them.
Great impression.
I watched that movie a lot, and then
Michael Caine.
I was having my Fone Branca, and then so like him in the cafe there, and then like someone will take up the mantle. Like it was so looking for the optimism that I think that's in there for that to show that not only did Bruce Wayne get his life back, but he was right that like Batman is more than one person, like more than a man. And I think the movie was just trying to prove that all of those things came to fruition rather than actually leading to a JGL film.
My name is Michael Caine. Do you remember that thing that I said earlier? That now it's happening.
Saw a ruby the size of a tangerine.
Good night, you princes of...
Cider House Rules, amazing. Perfect.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. I just think Batman should have like long hair and like a hat. He should wear like a tank
Maguire.
top a lot and like not bad shape, but like
Comfortable.
have like a beard and like
I think there is an argument to be made for like a
Hipster Batman.
there's an argument to be made for like a younger, like thinner.
Ooh, Lucy did not like that.
No, I think she's on my side. Batman, but where
Batman
they're going
Beyond
right
Batman.
now, yeah, like Terry McGinnis. Or
Do you?
something like
I mean,
that,
considering we live in a world where like that Wolverine movie happened, where they actually did like old
Logan.
Yeah, like I think that we're in a place where we could see Batman Beyond.
I would love to see a Batman Beyond movie, and that would be the perfect place for the type of Batman that Colin's talking about.
Or Tom Holland.
That's right, Tom Holland. He wanted to play Batman. That's right. We talked about this.
I'm all about calling back to old episodes no one listens
That's
to.
amazing. We're only like 6 in, and
Yeah.
we got so many callbacks.
Just throwing it back.
All right, what else do we got?
Wonder Woman is now the highest grossing movie in the DC extended universe.
We talked about this before, but I felt like we needed to talk about this again.
Yeah. So, is it the highest grossing worldwide? I think it's taken the cake domestically now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that it's necessarily eclipsed some of the other ones worldwide, but I'm sure that that's coming.
I like
if it
how,
hasn't
I
happened
like how
already.
safe you're being with your words right now domestically.
Well, yeah. After all. Part of it too is that like when we record these, they don't like come out the next day. So
No.
like when someone's listening to it, they'll be like, "Yeah, it's been like a week." So I'm trying to like hedge my bets a little bit here. But yeah, I mean, like regardless of whether or not it's there yet, it's certainly on track, and it's definitely proven that like that is the movie that people want more than the sort of style that they have been up until this point.
I also read that today that in Brazil, actually, it is the highest grossing superhero film they've ever had.
Really
Yeah.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, is it because they mentioned the Amazon so much?
You know what? I didn't think about that, but maybe there's like a huge like love for Wonder Woman down there because of that. I never even thought about that. Do you think that they're now going to like dramatically start changing the way these movies are made, like based on this success?
I think they already have. I get the.
But I mean, they haven't done it because of Marvel. Like Marvel has been doing very, very well, and they've never really tried to do what Marvel did.
No. And I don't think they'll ever cross fully over to that Marvel model. You know, like
That pop art, like.
but you'll never see like a climactic fight in DC and with a dance battle like you did in Guardians of the Galaxy. Like Marvel goes full comedy on some of those things. I don't think DC will ever do that, but they're definitely finally kind of taking the hint that we need some laughs. We need like some laughs, some hope, some joy.
It can't just all be like really deep, like religious references and like.
And it's not to say that there's not like great art in that,
Absolutely.
but that like it's hard to sit through 3 hours of that.
It's also hard to sit through 3 hours of comedy.
Me,
Like,
I mean, I love Batman v Superman. I legitimately love that movie, but it's long.
You really?
It's hard to sit through. Yeah,
you really love that movie?
I do. I just think it's slow. That's my big criticism of it is the pacing.
Have you seen the director cut?
I have the Ultimate Edition.
And what do you prefer?
The Ultimate Edition, because some of the little plot holes are actually things that they like had cut out. Like things
really?
that address like, well, why didn't they? So I prefer the Ultimate Edition. It does make the movie longer, and the pacing is a problem, but the movie makes more sense.
I like your impression of a fan. Oh, I watched this Batman movie and I just don't know.
Yep, let's move on before I get in trouble.
So I had some homework this week.
That's right.
I can't tell you how excited I am to get into this. So, listeners, if you're just tuning in with this new,
We've addressed this. You can't just tune into a podcast. You can't just like pick the halfway point.
oh, sorry, I don't mean like if you're just tuning into
this
this
episode.
exact moment of this
okay,
episode.
okay,
but if
yeah,
you're just starting with this episode, like you just subscribed and this is the one that downloaded to your phone. Last episode, I gave Colin a reading assignment. I gave him a random issue out of my personal collection. I gave him no information about it, no context whatsoever for him to read, and then we could discuss it today. So that issue was...
Time out. If we have listeners right now that are just jumping into this podcast, go back to episode 1, start there, and then when you get here, we can start enjoying what is about to happen now together as a team.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And time in. So that comic was Ragman #1 from 1976.
And I could tell it was from 1976 because those pages are yellow.
Yeah, I mean, I'll
It is beat up.
I didn't get this new.
I would hope not. How old are you?
That's
Not
too much
said
information.
1976. That's he's eternal. He's Dr.
Yes.
DC.
Yeah, I've yeah.
Talk
I'm
about
like
deep-
Vandal Savage.
Talk
in the
about deep
world.
cuts.
Yeah. So Ragman #1. So let's just start with the very kind of broad. What did you think, Colin? This is. I know you don't. I know you don't read like a ton of superhero comics or any even. So how was this?
Did you think it was weird that they made a comic book about a guy who had sex with a girl on her period?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's
not what this means.
So, anyways, right out of the gates, the cover, like the name of the guy is kind of just like, it's really underwhelming.
Ragman?
Yeah, it's not great. But the art on the cover is really quite, I wouldn't say inviting, but enticing.
Sure. So, like,
What did you call those eyes?
Hopeful.
No. You said they were
warm or something.
something inviting or something.
Oh yeah.
So the cover is very interesting. There's like articles of clothing and linens falling as like the forefront, and the back 4 panels of it are like a cut of this guy's face.
Yeah, not
But
just linens,
just a covered
though.
face.
There's a guy.
There's a guy falling.
Yeah.
Which, not to spoiler alert this shit, but later on, that shit goes down.
Yes, a guy does fall like through a
But you know what?
clothesline.
In his defense, Ragman is kicking the shit out of this guy on a rooftop, and he tries to save him, but the guy's clothes rip, which is like kind of a wink a little bit, because the guy's clothes are clearly raggy and shitty.
Ooh.
Yeah.
See,
didn't think
there's
about that,
levels.
did you? Yeah. I thought Ragman was really interesting for many levels. So one, there's multiple direct nods to the fact that he was a soldier in the Vietnam War.
Yep.
There's
What's the plot? That's what I'm kind of curious about. Maybe you can. I'm curious what your
man.
interpretation
So
of the plot.
my interpretation of it is that there's this young guy who gets back from Vietnam. It's 76, so it's a few years have gone by. His dad is this like proprietor of a kind of a pawn shop kind of thing. They take everything, like bird cages and like violence. Like they take it all. It's a pawn shop. So it's clearly he's kind of taken it over from his old man, who's now kind of a bit of a sour drunk, and whose partner's passed away. His wife has died. Ragman's mom is dead.
Mrs. Ragman,
Madam Ragman,
towel lady.
Yeah. That was her maiden name.
bag lady, Madam Bag Lady, and then but Ragman also kind of has this like his name's Rory, and he has this kind of like other side of him too, where he clearly has a relationship with a young woman that's kind of like telescoped a little bit in this, but not really explained a whole lot. And she's kind of like, "Oh, Rory, get your shit together. Why you're just going to turn out like your old man, this shitty old shop." And Ragman's dad, as there's like this bounce back to his childhood, and they're in this like old like horse-drawn carriage, and people are like throwing garbage at them, which is terrible. But he's like, I told your mom I'd make sure that you're rich someday or something. And some serious shit goes down throughout this. Like, how much of this can I give away? Like, do you?
It came out in 1976. I think it's
Spoiler alert's over at this point.
Spoiler, yeah.
So
Go through it. Yeah, I want to hear it.
So there comes a part where his dad and his old like drinking buddies are hanging out, and they're like, "Oh, we're sitting on this old mattress," because I guess that's the same as a couch.
It's the 70s.
And they're like, "Oh, it's really lumpy though," and they, for whatever reason, start destroying this mattress and finding like, I would say like $2 million.
Yeah, there's like a ton of money.
So in
the mattress,
1976, $2 million, like we're talking about some serious.
That's like $3 million.
No, probably more like 7.
Yeah, it's not like quite the difference from the Depression. Yeah,
No, but it's like it's a lot of money. And to be stuffed in a mattress. And this guy shows up and he's like, he's talking like some ragtime doll, like, and
a ragtime doll.
Yeah, it turns into a musical.
It's awful. And he's like, there's like a shootout and there's like live wires. Like, it's a whole big thing. Like, I'm not a crazy big comic book person. But I definitely caught myself flipping the pages, because of how much bullshit and extra crap are in comic books.
Okay, but before we get to that, let's keep going, because you talked about shooting and the wires, and we're right at like, that's an important part. So let's keep going.
So Ragman throws a tire, or tries to throw a tire to his dad so that they can.
You know the way kids and parents played in 1970s. Dad, let's go kick around the tire.
No, because they're being electrocuted by these guys trying to get the money back from them.
Okay.
They've shot the wires overhead, and the wires have fallen and are electrocuting the dad and his buddies to try and they're trying to get them to confess where the money is.
Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense. It's not just like, hey, Dad, let's go play the old throw the tire around.
So the tire is more like insulated from electricity.
It's important. And then, but Ragman's dad doesn't have a chance to tell him like why all this shit's going down. And the whole his whole life, he's told him like, I'm gonna make you rich someday. Like, I'm gonna leave you rich. And like he does, but Ragman has no idea because his dad dies in this horrible electrical fire with his friends all being electrocuted, and Ragman's the only one who survives the whole thing.
Well, so important thing.
Or in
I will jump in here. I love hearing you tell this because I'm so impressed with how much you've retained of this.
I know. I was really expecting him to be like, I didn't read.
No,
that.
this
Sorry.
is.
I was going to cliff notes it, but
no, this is great.
Good. Cole's notes.
So
Cole's
one
notes?
thing.
Are those better?
It's. I'm not going to go into detail.
Okay.
So Rory tries to use the tire to pull his dad.
It gets shot by the bad
buddies.
guys.
The bad guys, exactly. They shoot the tire out of his hand. They say, if you want to be tough, do it with your bare hands.
Yeah.
And
save him with your bare hands.
And so Rory goes in to do it, and then
because he's a fucking OG,
electricity grounds through him. So all of the dad's buddies and the dad are all being electrocuted, and then all of that energy goes through Rory. And he's, yes, like you said, the only one that survives this. Whoa. Keep going. So what happens?
So at the end of, I guess, issue 1 is we find Rory walking away from this in like burnt up clothes, and he finds this like note from his dad for like some costume or some shit, and he's like, oh, you can wear it at a party, it'll be kind of like haha neat or whatever. And it's this fucking super creepy superhero costume, this bullshit tights, this is like psychedelic 70s nonsense. This is fucking horse shit. Like the outfit is terrible. Like this guy got fucked. When it comes to like superhero costumes, like,
I told you I'd make you rich. Check out this costume.
That was terrible. But he's walking away and he's like, I don't know, like, what's in this alley that's worth your life. $2 million, you fucking idiot. Like, it's money.
So, yes, absolutely right. I will say it again. I'm so impressed with how much you've retained of this, because like this,
your father and I are very proud.
I'm reading at a 5th grade level right now.
There's so many pictures.
Much higher than a 3rd grade level.
But this issue is written in kind of an odd format. So you're right. The issue ends technically on this accident has happened. Rory finds this costume that isn't psychedelic. It's just rags.
Dude, look at it right now. Open that up. Tell me that's not psychedelic.
It's not psychedelic.
It's psychedelic as fuck.
Here we go.
I'm telling you, it looks like some yoga.
I'll show this to Richard.
It's like some yoga bullshit. There's other pictures. Go back to the start.
I'm not really seeing the psychedelic.
At any rate,
Give me
it's
the
at any rate.
Give me the.
At any rate, it's
magazine?
made of
Comic book?
rags.
What do you call it?
That's where it ends. But
It's 76.
But-
it's psychedelic as fuck. Look at it.
the whole first half of this issue
Is him chasing bad guys.
takes
And,
place later on. He's already Ragman.
Yeah.
The first half of this issue is Ragman fighting these hoods on the roof. That's when like the guy falls off the roof that Colin was talking
Yeah.
about. And then we flash back to
why it's all happening.
what has happened. So
Can I borrow that for a second? Just real quick.
yeah, sure. I'm just going to fill in some things. So this is Ragman number 1. This story actually continues in
Oh my God,
Ragman.
he's ripping it apart.
Yeah. Oh no.
This is terrible.
Oh my God.
You get 3 free baseball
My
cards. right
my
out the
tens
gate.
of dollars.
So in Ragman number 2, this story concludes. So I'll fill in a few.
This looks like a bad tattoo. Come on.
You really can't get over this.
I-
can
look
you?
at this outfit.
Not psychedelic though.
I
It
wouldn't
can be.
say
You can say it's
psychedelic.
bad, but it's not psychedelic.
Really? You really look at this stuff.
I could say it's like leaning on almost like flower powery,
Yeah, but aggressive flower powery.
but I like
Like it's almost the 80s. Remember that.
for
All the cocaine's
everybody
almost
besides
done.
the 3 people in this room. It's basically
There's
just
no
like
more
colored
Quaaludes.
circles all around,
And it's mostly green.
yeah.
So at any rate, just to fill in some things that you won't have gotten out of this issue. So when
As much happiness as you did.
when the drunk dad is hanging out with his buddies, Rory comes out and as you said, Rory's a Vietnam War vet. And he comes out and basically says like, Dad, you gotta like quit.
You gotta lean off on
You
this.
gotta quit like this sort of crazy drinking. And then all the buddies chime in and randomly tell him something about them. They're like,
Oh, I totally forgot
hey,
about
do you
that. Yeah.
remember that I'm the heavyweight champion? This is the left hook that meh, meh, meh. And they're like,
the one guy,
yeah,
like,
I
the
was an
strongest-
acrobat. I could flip. Meh, meh, meh. And then
And
the
then,
other
like, the
guy's like,
strongest man,
He was
he,
the
like,
strongest
picks him
man.
up. Yeah.
So what isn't specifically explained in this comic, but happens in Ragman 2 is that when
He
when
gets all
Rory
their powers?
reaches in and pulls them out of, or tries to get them out of the electricity, all of their abilities are transferred to him. So that's what helps make
What
him.
happens sadly in issue 2 is he also gets his dad's drinking problem. So he's walking around picking people up, doing handstands, wasted.
So strong, so acrobatic,
And a
so
terrible
drunk.
father.
Yeah. Just so many broken promises.
like a super level though. like he's the best.
Trust me though, you're gonna be rich.
Superhuman disappointment at Christmas.
You know, I never loved you.
Jesus.
Your mother's a
So that. Holy shit. Oh, I wish I had Ragman number 2.
Is that when you get blood in your feces?
No, Jesus Christ. So much to cut out of this episode. You got your work cut out for you this time. So that's something that you wouldn't have gotten out of that because it's not in there. But that is part of Ragman's power. So he gets the abilities of these people from the accident, and that's what makes him a superhero. Now, I will say,
I love the aha moment that I had though as soon as you started talking
oh, I know
about that. Like,
your
oh
face,
shit.
But Richard,
My
you
face-
saw it. You
my
saw how
face-
Stage
excited.
where you're like, oh, this is a comic book.
My
you
face
saw how
lit up like
excited-
Ragman's did that night in the
Yeah.
alley.
Saw how excited you got there.
I
It's
know.
amazing.
This is like an obscure way to start him off too. I'm impressed that he like.
But I started him on a number 1 at least.
What made you choose this one specifically?
Oh,
Like,
okay. That's a good question. So, I
Does
went.
it have something to do with the way that I look? Is this like, are my looks becoming
yes,
a
the
problem?
poor man's Ragman.
I just did get back from Vietnam.
Sleeveless tee man.
Korea. Korea is the Vietnam of the 21st century.
Yeah, no, Jesus. I went to my my collection and I have a pretty good balance of relatively modern comics and then things from like the 60s, 70s and further back.
Is this from your dad's collection?
No, this is mine. This isn't something I inherited from my father, but you're right, my collection did start that way.
Though I'm sure he still has a lot that he hasn't given you.
No, I think I have it all because I think a lot of
Really?
his stuff got like given away without his say so.
Mama wasn't.
So I just got like the
super stoked?
surviving. No, not my mom. Like I think like his folks. Like when you move out and stuff like I think like stuff just disappeared. You know what I mean?
I feel like one day you're gonna find like a stash somewhere and you're gonna be very excited.
I hope so. I would love to. I hope it's in the attic.
We should just kill your parents.
And cut.
so close to being Batman if it weren't for those pesky bears.
I know,
Yeah, so I was looking through my collection, and there was a part of me that wanted to just drop Colin in right in the middle of something crazy. Like,
but I feel like we'd never see him again.
Like, pick an event comic like Infinite Crisis and just pull out an issue in the middle, and he'd be like, Superboy Prime punched the reality wall and retcon, and just like the Anti-Monitor Tower, and they're like building universe, and just like watch his
I think we broke Colin, yeah.
And there was a part of me that wanted to do that, but I was like, if
you genuinely want to get Colin into comics, because I think that's part of this. The intention of this podcast, not only to inform listeners like you, but to also see if we can make Colin a nerd.
Well, yeah, and also on Twitter, Laser No.
You've already lost. By the time this has come out, you've already lost.
Yeah, it's late. It's a little late.
But no, I mean, if
Richard,
not,
help me with this.
If not become a nerd, at least like appreciate like what nerds see in this stuff. And so I softened my stance and I picked a number 1 issue, and I have a few different ones, but this one felt like something interesting. It's an obscure character that he wouldn't have prior knowledge about, so we'd be going in really fresh. There's sort of neat history to the character, and I can get into it in a little bit, like what happened to this character later on and how he's morphed and changed over time. But yeah, I think it's kind of neat. The 70s are kind of a good era for comics. They're starting to get a little grittier. They're kind of getting out of the campy phase of the 60s. And yeah, they're trying new things. They're trying to like make new characters and tell new stories. And Ragman's a perfect example of that. So I think that's why I picked it.
I love that his store, or his dad's store, I guess, he kind of takes over. It's called Rags and Tatters.
It is. That's right.
Bought and sold.
Yeah.
And so the origin of the tatterdemalion.
Yep.
It's kind of like, what's his like Latin fucking superhero name? What's the tatterdemalion?
So technically, not Latin. Now I'm about to say some things that aren't technically true in issue number 1 of Ragman from 1976. They become true later via retcons, which we talked about last episode, where they sort of retroactively change something about the character. So Rory Regan, who is Ragman,
RR.
That's right. Yeah, there you go. That's one of them. Yeah.
That sounds like a porn star, to be honest.
Oh, it does. Actually,
sorry, what was his name again?
No, we got to cut this bit out.
Rory what?
So yeah, Rory Regan.
Ooh.
Ow.
Ooh. Hello, pretty nurse lady. I'm Rory.
Was that Johnny Bravo?
Oh, I thought
A little bit.
So
and a throwback to undergrad.
So
too,
Rory Regan is actually he's Jewish, and Ragman later is
that was very obvious.
Well, but it's because it's not in there. But later it's retconned that
I wonder they were so protective over that money.
Oh no. No. They later retconned that the Ragman with the powers in that is actually like a golem, like from sort of Jewish like mythology. Like that he's replaced the Golem of Prague, basically. So that's part of it. And that retcon that happened after Crisis on Infinite Earths, instead of him only getting the powers of those 4 guys caught in the electrocution, he later ends up with the suit of rags. Each rag has a trapped soul of a sinner that he has like vanquished. And then
sinner, is it a religious thing?
A little bit, like someone, if he kills a criminal, that criminal's soul gets caught in the suit and adds a rag to his suit. And then he can call upon all of the souls in his suit to give him powers or abilities or knowledge or things like that. So that was the retcon. They took the idea from this that he absorbs powers from other people, and then later turned it into like that it was tied to the rags. Each rag is a soul that he can like you know a lot about, and like draw that knowledge, or like
he gets that skill set,
or like I need 10 of your strengths, and then he pulls it from the suit. So it's not in there in Ragman number 1, but that's a thing that comes later and actually makes him like a really interesting character that kind of inhabits that magical side of DC.
So is he connected to the other like DCU?
Yeah.
Like,
So
Does he like rip off a little bit of Superman's cape?
Ooh.
well, no. Like
It has to. He has
What
to.
do you mean? No.
He has to beat the guy.
Very plausible.
no. So two things. Superman's cape is made of Kryptonian fabric. He couldn't just rip it. Secondly,
I don't know, laser cut it with his fucking
doesn't-
sunbeam eyes.
he doesn't make his own rags. The rags like form
Are the souls.
from the souls. That's the later retcon. So in Infinite Crisis, Ragman teams up with a bunch of other magical characters to fight the Spectre. I mentioned the Spectre maybe 2 episodes ago. He's the incarnation of God's vengeance, and he went rogue during Infinite Crisis and destroyed Atlantis. So a group of magical heroes who are way outmatched, way outclassed by the Spectre form a team called the Shadowpact. It included Enchantress and Detective Chimp and Blue Devil.
Detective Chimp.
We'll get into him in a different episode.
Oh my god.
And like Nightshade, and a bunch of them basically team up and fight the Spectre. So yeah, the Ragman is totally tied to the rest of the DC universe, and the Shadowpact went on to have their own series. They would interact with Superman and Phantom Stranger and all sorts of other characters. So yeah, no, he's totally in there. In the New 52, he showed up in the Batwoman series. He teamed up with Batwoman. And actually, in the most recent season of Arrow, he was on it. Ragman was a character in season 5 of Arrow in the first half of the season.
How did they incorporate him?
So he shows up.
You worked at a laundromat.
Yeah. The aftermath of season 4 basically had like killed his family. It had these missiles were launched and then redirected to smaller towns to like minimize the damage, but it killed his family. And then he shows up, and they basically wrote him out of the show because he was like way overpowered, next to like Arrow and Spartan and
People
like the
with
other
actual
characters.
powers.
Yeah, and it even like people like Mr. Terrific and stuff like that. He was just way too powerful, but he was in there. So if you want to see like a live action Ragman, it exists. You can actually watch it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, his name in that is Sud Silverman.
Oh, I need to track this. Wait, why?
Because he works at the laundromat. That's where he gets all his rags.
Oh, we're just riding that joke. Huh?
Okay, I wasn't sure. I thought we had
All the
quickly
way to the
moved past
laundromat.
that.
No, I spent a good minute and a half there thinking about that name.
Do you know what? I've got a question for Colin though, actually, about specifically like this issue. So you see Ragman at the beginning of the issue as Ragman. You get this flashback of Rory Regan. You see both sides of it. Did this issue make you want to read the next one? Like, did you get to the end of it and say like, great, I read it? Or did you get to the end and say like, no, I like kind of want to see like, because we don't really see the moments between the accident and then him deciding to be a superhero. Like, did you want to see that?
Honestly.
Yeah, be honest.
Genuinely, I felt like, okay, to say, because I didn't know there was a next issue of it. His name's fucking Ragman. Like, throw him out.
Seems like a throwaway character.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. So I was like, that's really cool. They opened with kind of like this action scene with him. You understand kind of like, oh, he's fighting the bad guys. That's his deal. Cool. And he's covered in frags. He hides in an alley. That's fucking weird. And that whole thing
I
happens.
feel like we have a few of those downtown.
And then in most downtowns they have this. And then it flashes back to kind of like his reason for existing kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of explains his character. And genuinely, like, I didn't realize that there was another issue. If there is another issue, I would be curious to see what happens next based on the fact that I'm having the aha moment of like, oh, all these powers are transferring to this guy. That's really cool. Yeah. But that being said, I would be satisfied with there have only been one.
Right. Like you felt like you got...
They encompassed everything you needed to know about his character.
I get it. He's got rags. He's a man.
Yeah, Ragman.
Got it. Man, rags.
Do you know what's funny?
Well, he's
it's
Jewish, so it's Ragman.
Ragman? Silverman?
Ragmanowitz. Actually,
Racist.
no, it's
Dr. DC.
His father's like old world name is Reganovich. Like that's 100% real.
Wow,
Is that a Polish name?
So yeah, like Eastern
DC
European
really
Jewish,
loves doing shit like that, don't they?
Okay, DC does, but I'm just going to take a quick moment to lay some
Dr.
shade on
DC.
Marvel, because Marvel Comics has by far the worst secret identity name in the history of comic books.
Worse than the street.
So there's a
Spider the Man.
No, so there's
wrong one.
There's a superhero called Black Bolt. His real name, I shit you not, is Blackagar Boltagon. So before we shit on Rory Regan and Mr. and Jerry Reganovich, let's just remember Blackagar Boltagon.
So I'll have to just input and say that I was downtown today in our city, and I looked at the name of a real estate agent whose first name was Jort.
Like Jort.
Oh, that's right.
My son is also named Bort.
Yes. What kind of name is Jort? Did somebody J Jort? My son's also... What you said, yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, so what I was actually going to say, I've said already how impressed I am at how much Colin has retained.
You did a great job.
What's good
boy?
What's funny to me, though, is that the thing he didn't retain is the last little box in the issue that says this story continues in issue number 2. He said, I didn't know that there was an issue 2. It's the very last thing written in that issue in a big box.
Oh, yeah. It says end of part 1. It says the concluding chapter of the origin of Ragman will appear in the next startling issue on sale the 4th week in July.
Yeah.
I read the part where he's like, it fits like it was made for
the
me.
editor's notes now.
Yeah.
His last speech bubble is like, it fits like it was made for me.
But
kind of like this comic book. It fit.
Yeah.
It all fit in there.
So that's good. You felt satisfied. Even broader, did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Or did you just the story made sense, blah, blah, blah. Did you actually like it?
It was nice to... Okay, so my take on comic books so far,
because knowing what you like or dislike can kind of direct Dr. DC into what he gives you next, right?
Well, that's true too, yeah.
Well, the thing of it was that I enjoyed was the fact that it was a character that wasn't one of the main characters that everyone knows Superman, everyone knows Batman, everyone knows these main characters. But fucking Ragman? Are you kidding me? That's the weirdest superhero. Super weird.
Yeah, totally.
And to also kind of see it the interesting thing that I found was that his backstory to me was way more fascinating than Batman. Oh, cool, rich kid, parents dead in an alley, whoopty shit, I don't give a fuck.
Well, he's definitely more relatable, right? He's not rich. He's like a war hero that works at his father's pawn shop.
Totally relatable for us 3 guys in this room right now.
Well, sorry,
right.
Fucking war
I know. I
heroes.
said relatable and then mentioned the war, but he's more of an everyman.
We
than Bruce Wayne.
look like Vietnam War heroes, all beard.
I think you do. You have the hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have my legs. Get real. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. The artwork is awesome. The layering is really cool. So even on the cover and then seeing, because that scene does pop up 3 to 7 pages
with the guy falling off the roof.
Yeah, after the whole special magic set for offers and charm.
Let's take a second and actually talk about this because
can we talk about the stuff that's inside comic books?
Well, I'm kind of curious actually just looking at this because I remember at the very beginning you mentioned that you're oh, it looks really old because the pages are yellow, but the pages were always yellow, weren't they?
No, dude.
They haven't aged that much, right?
They've super aged.
I mean, a lot of the comics that I've inherited from this era or that I've gotten from this era are from people who liked to read comics. I haven't bought collector's mint things.
No, okay.
I think these are yellowed pages.
Okay.
That being said, we know for a fact that comics weren't as brightly, starkly colored as they can be now.
The papers have really changed.
The papers changed a lot. The inks changed a lot. The whole process is vastly different than it was then. But these are definitely yellowed pages.
Okay.
But yeah, Colin, when he was going through the synopsis, he almost broke into this whole side thing about the ads and there's forms send away membership forms.
So do they do send it was a money order thing and it was Bob Kane The guy who created,
Yeah.
Bob Kane. So I'll just read you the advert.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
if that's all right.
Yeah.
You have to do it in character though.
Fuck you. That's my character. So it's
seems to
like,
be always your fucking
hey
character.
kids, Bob Kane, creator of Batman, has written a new song called "Have Faith in Me," recorded by Hank Leeds and the Bat Group Courage. So you could send away for $1.30. I'm guessing American.
Probably, yeah.
So you could get a 45. So they were still selling records at this point.
What's the 70s?
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
70s. So you're getting like a singles disc, a 7-inch singles disc of 2 songs, "Have Faith in Me," and then the B-side was "You've Got Me Crying." And
Sorry,
it's-
and this
it
is
says
like a Batman inspired.
it's like it says like smash hit yours directly from Batman only, $1.30.
Yep.
And it was
You've got me crying.
and there was like an intro offer for a 4-inch by 5-inch autographed photo of Bob Kane in the Batmobile, and like a little cutout of like what to send. It was like, send check or money order to Batman, care of Downing Records. Like it was like this whole thing. Like it's really quite fascinating, the adverts that are in comic books.
So much of that is I mean the
And
nature
then
of
boom, 2 pages later, shooting Daisy. You got
Yeah.
guns in here. There's kids, dads. Everyone's happy.
yeah. It's such a different advertising landscape back
Do
then.
they still
to
even
now.
do anything like that?
There are ads in comic books still.
Do they still sell the fishing lures and everything?
No.
That's
no,
right
they're
in there.
often for other things DC related. Like they'll be promoting like the TV shows or the movies or
like sponsorship isn't like funding their comic books anymore.
or toys or things like that. Well, no, like now things like movies and TV fund the comic end.
There's even a U.S. School of Music advertisement in here. You can the
Yeah.
secret of teaching yourself music.
Sometimes there'll be like an ad for something like the Kubert School, like a comic art like program and stuff like that. But there's not really those send away things like there used to be.
Or like with the X-ray glasses and things like that.
No, and once in a while you'll get like a legitimate ad, but the ad is usually like tailored to comic people. Like if it's an ad for, I'm just going to make something up, but if we just imagine it's an ad for, I'm not making this up, this is a real one, an ad for Snickers. It's Superman and Batman fighting Doomsday, and then one of them says like, have a Snickers, you're not you when you're hungry, and then Doomsday turns into Wonder Woman. It's just like,
Does that really exist?
yeah, that's an actual.
You'll need to show me that.
That's I've got it in the collection there now.
Okay,
That ran for a couple of months.
So I can tell very clearly that comic books were not just for kids.
Okay, what have you found?
Be a locksmith. You can train at home.
You start them early.
Yeah.
Earn while you learn. Earn extra money right away. There's a whole thing.
So those kind of ads don't really exist anymore.
That's
in
sad.
comics.
That's sad.
Yeah,
We need locksmiths.
There is something
Become a
kind of-
trade worker.
There is
Holy
something
shit.
kind of nostalgic about like finding those old ads.
Kung Fu and karate. You learn it. They send you a record, a 12-inch record.
Maybe
Ooh, I want one.
in future I'll give you one where it has what used to be a thing, which was like comic ads where like Batman and Robin would be fighting pirates and they'd beat them with like Hostess Twinkies. Like that was a thing. It would be like a 1-page, like 9-panel comic or something like that. But at any rate,
See what it kind of comes
Yeah.
across as throughout is like how like modern day like the National Enquirer, like that kind of thing where there's these weird ads in there. And I think that a lot of the income for these comic books and the artists and the creators, whatever, was coming from these ad revenue agencies.
yeah,
They were just like, put whatever in this.
it was the ads in the actual purchase of comic books. And don't get me wrong, purchasing comic books still sustains them. If a comic doesn't sell, it gets canceled. So like even if you're buying it online and reading online, like if don't think that just because they're making movies that there's going to be comics of weird characters. That's not a thing. If it doesn't sell, they cancel it. So if there's a character you like Ragman or like Black Canary or like anyone, Blue Devil, or like Black Lightning, if they made a solo series of any of those, if you like it, buy it, because that's the only way that those series keep going. Yeah, so don't be fooled by the fact that those weird ads aren't in the comic anymore. That's still totally necessary.
Yeah, because Kung Fu and karate, you learn those in a dojo, not on a record player anymore, apparently.
That's where I learned
Yeah, I didn't.
on a 33.
The old 33. Classic.
All right. that was Ragman #1. I felt really good about that. I'm looking forward to the next time that I hand you something to read. I think it's going to be kind of fun.
Well, I'd be curious to see if you listeners have read this or have looked it up. We'd be curious to hear what you guys think about it.
Yeah, and if you haven't yet, like find it, take a read, try it out.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, weirdly, this isn't on Comixology. There's no digital version of this.
Oh wow!
But you
us
can
a-
find it on like eBay and things like that.
Give
You
us a
don't
call.
need a
We'll mail it
pristine
to you.
copy.
Just go out, find some fucking nerd, beat the shit out of him, and take his Ragman.
He's got it on him at all.
No, he does.
I dare you to try to come take this Ragman copy from me.
Yeah, Colin's getting
dare
very
you.
protective.
From my cold, dead hands.
This isn't my gun. So we're gonna move along, I think, to some questions that we've received.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of sort of related things.
Yeah,
I think since we've been talking about stories.
On Twitter here, holy shit. Stump Chunkman.
Okay, Stump Chunkman, this man is awesome.
He's incredible.
I'm not mocking the name. I'm mocking my inability after a couple of
he's a fellow Canadian too.
to read this. Don't drink hires. It will fuck you up. Stump Chunkman wants to know, what is your favorite run of your favorite hero? And then he goes, hashtag questions for Dr. DC. I like that. Can we,
Great
can we get that hashtag going?
Yeah, I
let's
think
do
that's
it.
okay. Yeah, if you guys have any questions for us, make sure that you tag us,
Yeah.
but also say
Send them all to Stump Chunkman and he'll pass them
yeah,
along.
exactly.
No, yeah, my favorite run of my favorite hero is actually something that I brought up casually 2 episodes ago, I think. So my favorite hero is Aquaman. I'm in no way ashamed by that because I've known for a very long time how badass he is. We're kind of getting the like Aquaman-essence right now.
I'll tell you, I showed my wife like the trailer for the Justice League.
Yeah.
And she's very much so a fan of him right now.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I
he's-
think he's gonna take my wife.
He can take anyone he wants, I think.
He could take me, to be honest. That's attractive. Man.
I think that he's pretty committed to his current wife.
He is.
I mean,
totally.
I know that we talked to him on the last episode, but I can fawn over him on this one as well.
Or two
episodes ago.
it's
Yeah,
2 episodes
Jason
ago.
Momoa.
Yeah, so Aquaman.
I really like his samosas.
Amazing.
Aquaman
Jason
is
Momoa.
Jason Mimosa is great in the morning.
Momoa
He's
that.
a good breakfast actor.
I like Jason Momoa's mimosa samosas.
Mimosas and samosas?
That's
The mimosa flavored samosas. They're Jason Momoa samosas.
That's the food truck that he opened where it's all
Jason
mimosa, mimosa flavored samosas.
I can't get there.
Jason Momoa's mimosa samosas.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that since like 2 episodes ago.
We're laughing, but we're also loving.
Right? I'm just saying.
Jason Momoa at Pride of Gypsies. I know you're listening now.
Yeah, I know.
This
We're
is the
going to
best,
keep
the
tweeting you
best business idea. I'm going to tweet you this business
And
idea.
I follow him on Instagram. So
until he comes on this episode or on this podcast.
When he comes on, it's going to be like an episode of like Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. Like he'll have to pitch us Jason
no, of
Momoa's
course.
mimosa samosa.
Yeah, no, without a doubt.
So to get back to Stump Chunkman, my favorite hero is Aquaman. My favorite run of comics of Aquaman has to be Peter David's 90s run. So this is post Crisis on Infinite Earths. It started with a mini series called Time and Tide that basically set Aquaman up again as a bit of an exile from Atlantis, sort of a self-imposed exile. But through that series, Aquaman Volume 5, I believe it is, that's the series where like he starts with the orange shirt and the green pants, and then like in one issue he's in this like really brutal fight and the shirt gets ripped and he's like, fuck it, no shirt. And then he loses his hand and he's like, fuck it.
Does he get a
yes? And then and his hair grows long and he has this sort of gladiator thing. And that run of Aquaman through the 90s is so, I mean, it's so different from what most people are used to, but it's also just it's the thing that's sort of inspiring Jason Momoa's Aquaman. It's great though. There's some really neat character stuff in there. All like they sort of redefine his relationship to his half brother Orm, who's the villain Ocean Master. There's really incredible stuff in that Peter David run. to my great shame, I don't have the full run, but I have half of it. I have issues 0 to 35 or 36 of Aquaman Volume 5, and it's like my prized possession. It's so great.
I think we need to stop for a second because I feel like we've lost our producer to some Twitter activity.
I'm sorry. I need to show.
So what's happening right now on Twitter, or what has happened, if Richard will explain it?
So a band that is very, very talented just tweeted at Dr. DC, laser hell no.
Yes. Yes.
But they didn't use the hashtag.
Oh,
DQ'd.
I think that super counts.
DQ'd.
I think that extra super counts.
At any rate, that's my answer for Stump Chunkman. I know he asked this question a little while ago. It's taken me a little while to get around to it, but that's by far my favorite run of my favorite hero.
Amazing. Great answer.
Thank you.
Actually, great question.
Yeah, no, it's a terrific question. You know, like that. They don't all have to be like the deep dives. There's like things that I can answer relatively quickly.
I wonder if Stump is like a family name. Is that his grandfather's name? Or?
I think Chunkman is the family name.
Chunkman is a family name, yeah.
Stump is his given name.
I do believe his name is actually Adam, but...
Don't worry about it.
No, don't worry about it. It's Adam Chunkman, obviously.
You're killing me, Smalls. So, at Cardaholic.
Nope, not too many hires.
Nope, not too many hires.
That's at Cardaholic.
Just Cardaholic. Replying to at Dr. DC, why not Identify Crisis rated R-rated animated film yet? Why with like a trillion?
I was trying to figure this one out.
So I'm actually going to correct you there because you are a couple of drinks in and you misread it. So it says, why not Identity Crisis?
Oh, Identity.
Rated R animated film yet.
We clearly... maybe my eyes are getting bad. We should get these bigger.
I think it's the typeface. I might have to change it.
So Identity Crisis is a series that came out in the mid-2000s, and I mean, it kind of deserves its own episode, but it's a series where this character, Dr. Light, who for years was like a joke villain, like the teenagers would beat him up, like Robin and Kid Flash would just kick the shit out of him. He was just like, he was no one. And basically, the Atom's wife is like murdered and her corpse is like burnt to a crisp. And
Ooh.
while they're investigating,
That's just called cremation.
a group, like burnt to a crisp as the, like not
Like that's
as a
how she
cremation.
died?
Yeah. So as they're investigating, a group of Justice Leaguers kind of break off from the investigation and they all say like, we know who did this. It's Dr. Light. And then through the series, it's revealed that like many, many moons ago, Dr. Light had raped a different Justice Leaguer's wife, and then he was deemed too dangerous, so they magically like castrated his brain. Like they magically lobotomized him. And that's what made him like a joke villain. So that's a retcon. And over the course of this, you realize like they did it to Batman too. They like altered his memories with magic. So it's this thing where like they can't trust each other anymore.
Wait, is Batman a rapist too?
No. Batman found them doing it and said, and
you mean found
them like messing with his
Not
brain.
raping somebody's
Jesus.
They found found them messing with Dr. Light's brain, and he went to stop them, and they made Zatanna wipe his memory of all of those events. This all kind of leads into Infinite Crisis, and a lot of things tumble out of it. The reason that it's probably not been made into an animated film, even rated R, is because that story's become pretty controversial. I mean, rape is like a thing that happens in stories, but in the context of comic books, it becomes part of this larger conversation where female characters, especially like quote unquote, like just wives of characters, are brutalized or killed or tortured or raped in the service of the male character's story. It kind of dehumanizes them. It makes them basically like props in that male story. Like, why do we have this character raped? So this other like male superhero will get angry and save the day. And it's a phenomenon referred to as women in refrigerators. This could totally be its own episode, and it will be in the future. I do want to cover this in the future. But my guess is that DC is shying away from Identity Crisis, even an adapted version of it, rated R, because of the controversy surrounding it. I mean, if you could, as a mental exercise, separate the story from that larger phenomenon, it's a very powerful, very interesting book. There's a lot of layers. There's some really neat character interactions. You see like how they've all dealt with this secret. Like it involves Green Arrow, Flash, Hawkman, Black Canary. They've all kind of carried the weight of this secret. Zatanna. They've carried the weight of this secret for a long time. There's a lot that has merit in that story. It's a little bit tainted by that women in refrigerators thing. I do promise that will be an episode in future, because it's fascinating in its own right, that whole phenomenon.
I definitely feel like it's something we need to address.
Oh,
too.
absolutely.
And just kind of like, it's such an and it's the word interesting. I don't think encompasses it enough. But it's such a powerful statement about how far we've come and how little we've traveled really for that.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to just clarify, like right now, the people that are writing these stories aren't doing it on purpose. They're not saying like, how can we brutalize women so that we can further male characters' stories? Like, no one's doing that. What that phenomenon is trying to address, though, is the fact that there's something sort of unconscious, like programmed societally in there, where doing those sort of horrible things to a secondary or tertiary female character is totally acceptable to further a male character's story. It just sort of robs them of agency, basically.
Yeah.
And especially in a world where we're more aware of those sort of like feminist philosophies, seeing things like that is hard to stomach. I think that's probably why they haven't made this movie yet. It's not to say that they won't ever, and it's not to say that they can't. They totally could. It's a story that exists. You could do it. You could adapt it even and sort of like mitigate those things. But I would not be surprised to learn that that's why they've shied away from it.
It'd be interesting to see female superheroes almost like created out of such an act of violence.
So that would be something to give them agency. Exactly.
Yeah,
That would be the opposite of something like Identity Crisis or like Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters, which actually robbed Black Canary of her superpower. It would be the opposite of those things. Yeah, no, it would totally be interesting. But yeah, I hope that answered your question, Cartaholic.
Probably not. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, you can email us at
drdcpodcast@gmail.com.
Hit us up on Twitter
at Dr. DC.
And on Facebook at
Dr. DC Podcast. And
oh shit, we got Instagram.
What?
What?
It happened. Holy cow.
You'll find a sweet, sweet picture probably coming up of me sitting, reading, doing stuff.
That's right.
Dr. DC Podcast. That's us on Instagram.
We're everywhere now.
Remember to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes.
Very important.
Right.
It's how we make no money.
Be our super friends.
Yes, please be our super friends.
Super friends forever.
All right.
Well, some kind of sign off.
Later, dorks.
Adios.
Aquaman, all the superheroes. They always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure.